Hey, in this video I'll be talking about just how influential the big three of anime slash manga were. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it. In case you're living under a big ass rock that has a cave in it, and you were living under a rock in that cave, the term Big Three refers to the three biggest anime in the early 2000s, which are One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. A big reason they became popular in the West is because in a way, they were indirectly replacing the Dragon Ball anime, which I understand had ended somewhat around the same time as the One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach's animes were starting. That's why a lot of people often try to replace a member of the big three, usually Bleach, with Dragon Ball. But that's not the only anime people try to replace a big three member with. They've tried to replace them with Hunter x Hunter, Fairy Tail, and a lot more. I'll also explain why those three and more aren't a part of a big three. Now, I want to talk about the manga ratings. I'll be using this official weekly Shonen Jump, only Japanese, ratings tracking site. And let's do this one series by series. Which one to start with? Beach. Close enough. At the start, Bleach had a pretty rough time with the ratings, but at about the part where Ichigo and Squad entered the Seirei, the inner circle of Soul Society if you forgot, the ratings started to pop off! And you could see that from about where Strawberry and Squad entered the Soul Society. In general, the ratings started to improve, as it was the 5th best rated series of 2003, although it started at the end of 2001, and from then on, till 2010, it was the 3rd best rated series in all of Weekly Shonen Jump. Its 3rd place spot in overall ratings was never overtaken, even once. Until the Arankar arc ended. From there, the ratings were just fine for a bit. But then the ratings dropped a lot, till it was pretty much at the bottom of the magazine. So from 2003 until 2010, it was in the top 5, which 6 out of 7 of those years, it was number 3. But the Japanese readers really disliked the Full Ring and 1000-Year Blood War arcs. Next up is... what was it again? Oh yeah, it was Naruto. While Bleach's average rating was 8.53 from all its chapters, Naruto had a much better rating of 3.7. The lower it is, the better. And with that, Naruto had a much better run than Bleach. Almost immediately from when it started, it was a huge hit. It started towards the end of 1999, and starting from the year 2000 until it ended, it was in the top 5. But even with just the top 5, you can clearly see how good the ratings for it were. Here, in 2000, it was the 3rd best series in Weekly Shonen Jump at the time, according to the Japanese readers. In 2001, it was the 2nd best, but it fell to 3rd in 2002. However, from there until 2012, it was the 2nd best series, with one exception in 2005, when it was the best series according to Japanese readers. It overtook One Piece in overall yearly ratings, which only Naruto has ever done. But after 2012, in 2013, it fell to 4, giving Assassination Classroom 2nd and Toriko 3rd. And in its final year, 2014, Naruto took back 3rd, but still behind Assassination Classroom. But even with this incredible run, there is one series that has had a better run. I wonder which one it might be. One Piece has simply had a generational run. Holy fuck. I won't talk about it a lot here because I recently made a whole video talking about how dominative the One Piece manga is. But here, in short, it has been number 1 pretty much up until now. There's only been one interruption in this beautiful number 1 streak. And it is, as I said before, Naruto in 2005, when it overtook it for just 1 year in overall yearly ratings. And since it started in the 3rd quarter of 1997, I figured it couldn't possibly be number 1 there. And it fucking was! It was literally dominating the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine since day 1! From there, I checked all of the overall quarterly ratings and found that in only 5 of the years since One Piece started, there has been at least 1 quarter where One Piece has been beaten. They were the 3rd quarter of 2002, where One Piece fell to 2nd, beaten by the Prince of Tennis, 3 quarters in 2005, where it was 2nd, overtaken by, you guessed it, Naruto. In 2009, where it was overtaken for 2 quarters, both by Naruto, in which One Piece fell to 2nd both times, and 2011, for 1 quarter, you guessed it again, Naruto, and finally, in 2021, by Jujutsu Kaisen, in which it fell to second again. One Piece has never dropped to third in overall quarterly ratings. That's fucking crazy. And as you heard, the biggest pain in the side for One Piece by far was Naruto, another big 3 member. Just as a note, sometimes One Piece wasn't first or even in the top 5. That's because it had less than 6 chapters, hiatuses, so it couldn't qualify for the quarterly contender. But I didn't count that because we couldn't know if it was going to or wasn't going to be first. Probably was, but we can't be for sure. And One Piece's average overall ranking is 2.35. God damn. Yes, although Bleach had by far the worst average rating, it really started to fall off after the Arrancar arc ended, which, coincidentally, was when the peak of the Big 3 series overall started to show some cracks. The biggest thing that made the Big 3 is the anime. Everyone knows that anime generally is way more popular than manga. And even though a lot of anime at the time had weekly schedules, all of the Big 3 anime had weekly schedules, with Studio Period raking in the cash every week. Holy shit, they had 2 out of the 3 Big 3 at the same time. Toei Studio also was raking in the cash, and still is, with the weekly One Piece anime and some kind of Dragon Ball anime. Those 2 back then were just swimming in cash. Probably, I don't know. And with a weekly anime comes a lot of fans. Nah, scratch that. It doesn't even need to be a weekly anime, just an anime in general. But the point is that the anime for all of these made the already wildly popular mangas even more popular. It is mainly through the anime that the Big 3 get their name anyways. Between the 3 of them, it is generally agreed that One Piece was very popular in Japan, but maybe just a little bit less popular than Naruto worldwide, while all 3 of them were airing. While Bleach was just generally very popular, but simply less popular than Naruto or One Piece. But I'd still like to say that Bleach probably was at times more popular than Naruto or One Piece. Like, the popularity would peak, and during those peaks be more popular than Naruto or One Piece briefly. Also, I'd like to attribute Naruto's slight edge over One Piece popularity-wise worldwide to the originally widely agreed upon bad 4Kids dub adaptation. Also, the Bleach anime was cancelled / went on hiatus for just over a decade, which definitely tanked its popularity because, well, it didn't have an ending. Though, finally, the ending is being adapted, and it's so much better than anyone could have predicted. Take literally any moment of any 1000-Year Blood War episode, and you will be mesmerized, which definitely incentivizes people to rewatch the older anime, and for newer fans to watch the older anime so they can watch the new anime, which in turn makes the already long finished manga and anime more popular. So in some weird way, the Bleach anime and manga might have become slightly more popular by going on hiatus. Maybe? I don't know, that's just an idea. So with how their legacies look like in retrospect, One Piece has been and will continue to dominate until it ends, and probably for a while after. Although I am interested in how well everyone will feel about its ending. Naruto seemed to be going very strong, but towards the very later parts, looked like it was starting to waver a bit. And personally, I haven't seen much from the Naruto community in a while. Most of the diehard fans seem to migrate towards the sequel-ish series to Naruto, Boruto, which... oh god, let's not talk about that. But Bleach had 2 different fall-offs for the anime and manga. For the manga, pretty much right after Aizen was defeated, the ratings already started to fall off a bit, but seemed to be steady for a bit, although lower, during the Fullbring arc. But starting from chapter 439, the ratings were really bad. Of course, with some highs, assuming those were some fights or cool moments. But overall, bad ratings. And for the anime, it was the same thing, but the Fullbring arc was immediately regarded as a bad arc. But for the 1000-Year Blood War, everyone seems to be loving it. Personally, 1000-Year Blood War Season 1 was the best season in the entire Bleach story. Maybe the OQR fight was better. Alright, finally, what I promised at the start. I'll take some of the most popular replacements for the actual Big 3 and explain why those can't be in the Big 3. Firstly, probably the most popular replacement for a Big 3 member, usually Bleach, Dragon Ball. While yes, Dragon Ball is more than popular enough to quote-unquote qualify for a Big 3 spot, that isn't the only requirement for the big three. Or not even a requirement, but what makes the big three the big three. It's that they were the most dominative anime slash manga in the early 2000s. The Dragon Ball manga ended in May 23rd, 1995, and Dragon Ball Z ended in January 31st, 1996. And even Dragon Ball GT ended in November 19th, 1997. Although I'm pretty sure the dub for these kept going for quite a bit while it was catching up. So it means that during the early 2000s, Dragon Ball wasn't even airing. The best way I can put this is that Dragon Ball set the stage for the big three to flourish in the West, as anime was starting to become more and more popular with each Dragon Ball episode. And when it ended, people were craving something that could replace it, or just replace it while they were waiting for the next Dragon Ball sequel. And wouldn't you know it, One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach had recently begun. You could also say that the big three carried the torch from Dragon Ball, so that's why Dragon Ball can be a part of the big three. Next is Hunter x Hunter, and yes, the manga was popular back then. Not sure what happened in chapter 128, but it was still popular. But the biggest problems for this one is that it didn't really have a very popular anime back then. It did have an anime, but it wasn't nearly as popular as the big three, Dragon Ball, or any series I'll mention. And the insane hiatuses were another reason why. It was going on frequent hiatuses since pretty much the start, and that was another big thing why Hunter x Hunter wasn't considered a part of the big three. Alright, fine. I'll show you just how often it went on hiatus. Just remember, the red dashed line is where there was a hiatus. Yeah. And if you're thinking, well, most of this is in the later part of this series, the beginning didn't really have that many hiatuses, then check this out. Its first hiatus was between chapters 12 and 13. Just for perspective, the first time One Piece ever took a break was between chapters 171 and 172. As I said, pretty much since the start, it has been in hiatuses. The next series that is a popular contender for a replacement in the big three is Fairy Tail. Now this is a good contender for a big three spot, but an unofficial official quote-unquote requirement is that it is from Weekly Shonen Jump, like Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter, Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece, while Fairy Tail is from a different magazine, which is one of the biggest competitors to Weekly Shonen Jump, Shonen Magazine Weekly. Yeah, there's a difference. Anyways, one more reason why it wasn't considered a part of the big three is because even though it was popular and was actually pretty close to Bleach's popularity at times, is because the anime began less than 3 months before 2009 ended. So it pretty much started in the 2010s. And if you remember a thing I've said like 500 times by now, the big three series were series that were dominative in the early 2000s. So that's why it couldn't really be a part of the big three, even though it was comparable to Bleach at times. What do we have left? Attack on Titan. Yes, it was very fucking popular, and its anime went super viral. But first of all, the anime started in 2013, so it already can't be a part of the big three. And during the 4-year hiatus between season 1 and 2, a lot of fans grew tired of waiting, and in a way, abandoned the series because of how long it was taking. Also, Attack on Titan is not a Weekly Shonen Jump series, so that as well. Alright, Demon Slayer. This one is quite a bit more interesting to talk about. As I'm sure you know, Demon Slayer's manga is wildly popular, and the anime even more so. In addition, it is a Weekly Shonen Jump series, but again, the time frame is way off, like 20 years off. The Demon Slayer anime started in the earlier part of 2019, so it's totally off. If there had to be a new gen big three, then Demon Slayer would definitely be a part of it, but it's not a part of the original big three. Alright, let's see what's next. Wait. What the fuck? Alright, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy the other video I made explaining the big three in 16 minutes. I also had a friend come and help me do the One Piece segment because I actually haven't watched or read One Piece. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you next time. See ya!